Bill once believed that every mistake could be washed clean by loyalty. In the hushed mansion of Fairmont Crest, where each stone along the path seemed to retain the warmth of old vows, he looked at his reflection in the glass and told his past that he would not betray anyone ever again. But loyalty can become a double-edged blade, for in this world people don't only kill with guns, they kill with memories. Haley once loved him, once thought he was the only escape from a life steeped in violence and sin. But when a heart is compressed for too long, love can turn into poison. The plan to kill Bill was not merely a revenge plot. It was the only door she could see that might lead out from the man who had taught her to believe in things that never existed. Yet when Bill stood before her, voice low, gaze stripped of arrogance and heavy with remorse, something inside Haley began to dissolve. She no longer knew whether she could kill him, or whether she was only killing the last remnants of herself. Does forgiveness exist when guilt has sunk so deep it has become part of one's breath? And if she abandons the plan, will Randy let it rest? Randy knows nothing of love. He only understands debts. In the shadows of Fairmont Crest, where deals are struck in silence and fear, Randy never gives anything without taking back twice as much. He sees Haley as a piece in a power game and Bill as an obstacle to be removed. Haley's hesitation, her softening in the face of Bill's repentance, feels to Randy like betrayal. Betrayal, to him, is more terrifying than death because it topples the only belief he ever held, that everyone has a price and anyone can be bought. He begins to make his own plans, not only to preserve the scheme but to keep Haley near him at any cost. And yet a nameless fear rises in him. Has Joey already learned everything? Joey, the one who stands outside every war and still wins, knows how to exploit human frailty, especially when remorse begins to bloom. Bill is perfect prey, a man trying to atone while the world around him only wants to shove him deeper into the pit. Joey seizes on that weakness, tracing every step Bill takes, every glance Haley casts, every spike of panic in Randy. He doesn't need to order anyone's death. He need only present a choice and let greed, guilt, and fear devour each other. Was it Joey who led Bill to discover Haley's plot and then used it as leverage to turn them into his instruments? Or was everything merely the coincidence of a cruel fate? Meanwhile, elsewhere in Fairmont Crest, Jacob faces a crisis that neither money nor reason can solve. Naomi, the woman who once felt like the only light in his life, is drifting away. Every conversation ends in silence. Every touch carries a chill. When he turns to Nicole, he tells himself it's only for advice. A confidant within the family, but deep down he is seeking salvation. He wants Nicole to tell Naomi they still have a chance, that the child they lost was not the final period, that they can rebuild from ashes. But those well-meant words ignite a different fire in Naomi, rage. She cannot bear Jacob dragging the aunt she has always distrusted into the private space of their marriage. Memories of being diminished, of being treated like someone else's project, flood back. Within her, love hardens into anger, and anger curdles into hate. Was Nicole merely an advisor, or the person Jacob once turned to in the loneliest nights? Nicole, serene on the surface, may be the most dangerous piece on the board. She understands how people behave when they are desperate. She has been there. Naomi and Jacob's relationship is not just family business. It is a trial of control, trust, and a quiet, gnawing jealousy. As Naomi's fury grows and everything begins to buckle, Nicole feels a sick satisfaction. Jacob has come to her, acknowledging that she understands him better than his wife. But satisfaction quickly mutates into fear. If Naomi uncovers this, will Nicole lose everything? Or worse, could Naomi push Jacob to hate her enough to destroy her? Jacob never imagined that a small piece of advice would drag his entire family over a cliff. Naomi begins to avoid him. The unanswered messages, the long mute evenings, until one day she is gone, leaving only an unsigned letter. He searches everywhere and calls Nicole, but only the cold ring answers back. Then Joey emerges from the shadows with a contract, a way to help you find the woman you love. In return, Jacob must do just one thing: sign a transfer related to one of Bill's investments at Fairmont Crest. He doesn't understand, but he signs. From that moment, everything knots together. Bill is accused of money laundering. Haley and Randy are arrested on suspicion of collusion. Jacob is investigated for participating in the transaction. The press descends on Nicole. Her reputation is shredded. Naomi returns but trusts no one. Joey watches from the margins, a faint smile on his lips. All the pieces have landed in the right squares. Was this his design from the beginning, or merely the harvest of selfishness each person sowed? Bill, who once swore by loyalty, sits in a cell, fists clenched, replaying the moment he promised Haley he would never betray her. Or was that promise itself the curse that kept her from ever being free? Outside the windows of Fairmont Crest, night winds move through the trees, carrying whispers like the voices of the grieving. In that air, the spirits of promises, betrayals, and love long dead still drift. Haley lies in her cell, eyes half closed, remembering Bill's gaze, no longer certain whether she wants to kill him or save him. Randy, forced by Joey to sign an agreement, knows a single misstep could erase him forever. Jacob looks back over his life and wonders if seeking counsel from Nicole was the first step toward catastrophe. Nicole sits before a mirror and sees her own face, but in her eyes flickers the shadow of Naomi, emptied out, numb and hollow. And somewhere in Fairmont Crest, Joey raises a glass. By the window, his smile thin as smoke. He need not lift a finger, the world consumes itself. Will anyone ever realize that evil doesn't arrive from outside but is born in the instant a person believes they are doing the right thing? Can anyone escape the spiral of loyalty, betrayal, and redemption? Or has everything already been buried beneath the gates of Fairmont Crest, where no one is truly innocent? Vanessa steps into control of an asset everyone considers Joey's rare jewel, a share whose value and quiet influence skew the balance of power at Fairmont Crest. The moment she signs the authorization, she understands that anything belonging to Joey carries the scent of an invisible trap, a knot tightened by legal clauses, covert relationships, and a transactional history built to blur. Control does not equal freedom. It is a key that opens a brightly lit room whose floor is studded with motion sensors and the cold steel eyes of a security system where every financial decision is logged as data and every click triggers a chain reaction Joey programmed long ago. One might ask whether Joey truly sees Vanessa as a wife, an ally, or simply the custodian of a velvet-wrapped time bomb. If it is love, why are the documents written as if to preempt betrayal? If it is a trap, why is it so exquisite, with profit indices, veto powers, and negotiating authority all tilted toward her on paper? Vanessa knows better than anyone that Joey's kindness is often laid atop thin ice. One misstep and it shatters, dropping you into a bottomless, black lake. She combs through the clauses and finds appendices few ever read. Audits by third parties Joey himself introduced. An ethics provision that looks pristine yet grants enforcement in conveniently ambiguous circumstances. And, most of all, a chain of side agreements embedded among strategic suppliers who seem independent yet owe Joey more than gratitude. Is this a golden circlet tightened around her head, forcing her to uphold the order Joey prefers, so that when she thinks she's changing the system, she's merely turning a gear on a track he laid out? When Vanessa moves to clean up cash flows, restructure supply lines, and rotate personnel in blind spots, she encounters a strange response. No open resistance, no angry emails, no twisting phone calls, only tiny errors, late contracts, inventory figures drifting by a few %, as if an entire machine were testing her stamina, dragging her into a wearying dance where each adjustment raises a rash of vague alarms. She wonders if this is Joey taking her temperature, or a social experiment forcing her to choose between safety and integrity. Filtering the data, she uncovers intermediary accounts with smooth corporate names, logistics companies of no renown whose activity maps oddly intersect with funds underwriting sumptuous events at Fairmont Crest. If she cuts them, does she slice into the facade Joey uses to keep the peace on the surface? If she leaves them, is she complicit, And deeper still, could her decision accidentally open a gap for an unseen rival to slip through, cinching a noose around her survival? Vanessa doesn't believe in coincidence, but she is compelled to believe in the faint drafts in the corridors, in the feeling of being watched by numbers, in the moment she reads a report and senses it was written before the event occurred. Elsewhere, Pamela presses Andre for a definitive answer about posing for a major Forrester Creations campaign, a deal she and Danny painstakingly assembled, weaving the modeling agency's name and reputation into a golden opportunity. Pamela is not the kind to tolerate the gray of silence. Yes or no are the two beats that set the money cameras rolling. Her urgency carries the breath of business. Deadlines, runways that cannot start late. But beneath the hard shell lies another worry. If Andre keeps refusing to be the face, if he insists on remaining a shadow behind the lens, will the agreement collapse like a domino line, dragging doubt onto the team's competence, onto Danny's credibility, and onto the minimum ethic of friendship Pamela clings to in a ruthless industry? She remembers too clearly the years Danny dreamed of working with Forrester Creations, the polite rejections she endured with a smile, and she refuses to watch that dream vanish over an unspoken mystery Andre won't unseal. Andre stands before an old question life keeps pushing aside. Why won't he step into the public eye anymore? Why have the portraits that once bewitched the gaze been locked away? Why are invitations deflected by gentle excuses? Beneath the refusals lies a past he doesn't want to touch, a fissure not quite scandal and not quite accident, but a toxic blend of loss and endurance, of being forged into a symbol and crushed by it. For a time he was the face of wildly successful campaigns, each image cut through the market like a blade, opening revenue and shaving off a piece of his soul. Then came a day when the sky changed color, not from a fall on the runway or a tawdry affair, but from a night as still as stone, when the person he loved most never woke after a routine surgery, and the photographs he shot that day became a final benediction. Every camera afterward turned into artillery. Each flash became a white-hot jab into his grief, a reminder that his handsome face had saved no life, erased no cold death notice. Since then he has chosen the far side of the lens, the press of the shutter a quiet ritual of penance, as if, by finding the right angle, the right light, the right sliver of time, he might repay the world for something he lost forever. Danny has sensed that crack for a long time but never asked. Love sometimes chooses silence as a kind of shelter. Now silence is no longer an option. The Forrester deal has no room for heavy shadows. Pamela reminds Danny of the nights she dreamed of marquee lights, of perfect seams and dresses like mobile architecture, of taking her place among the worthy faces of a legendary brand, and that chances rarely knock twice. Danny declines politely under the weight of private life, but Pamela won't. She demands an answer from Andre, wants the real reason why a man who once turned stage light into language is running from it. Is Andre afraid of an unforgiving mirror, or a crowd that no longer remembers his name? Or is he afraid that if beauty finds him again, the world will take something from him that he hasn't finished holding? As the deadline nears, the invisible metal cage tightens. Pamela pushes, Danny stands between, Andre retreats, and every thread of feeling knots into a net. Pamela doesn't realize another woman stands behind Andre's decision, a nameless memory his heart refuses to erase. Danny feels that presence during the nights he lingers on the balcony, watching the glow of Fairmont crest lacquer the sky like an enchanted city. Every call from Pamela sends Danny's pulse into a stagger, because she knows if Andre refuses, Pamela will read it as treachery to the work. If he agrees, the door of the past will fly open and flood them with everything she prayed he'd forget. Meanwhile, Vanessa probes deeper into the underlevels of the asset she now controls and finds a small fund named for a noble-sounding community program. The transfers, however, loop through a private finance platform run by soft-spoken men who never appear at Fairmont Crest yet manage to make its parties sparkle. She orders an independent audit and requests contracts with third-tier suppliers, and receives an unsigned note. Let sleeping things lie. She wonders if Joey left the trail on purpose, a test of loyalty. Report it to him to prove she is family, or stay quiet and fix it to prove she serves principle. But if this is a two-pronged trap, does either branch cost her what remains? She remembers Joey's embrace on a cold afternoon, the scent of oak in his whiskey, the promise of protection, and also the contracts he laid before her with that enigmatic smile. Loving a man like Joey is learning to dance on a battlefield disguised as a ballroom. She cannot afford a single misstep. At last, Andre sits with Danny and speaks of the past without words, laying out photographs he had hidden. Danny turns them over, seeing the man who once touched the sun, and then the last frame is a blank, as if the reel were cut and the story snapped. She understands that stepping in front of a camera again means confronting that blank panel, the day everything collapsed and he never admitted. She wants to protect him, to say they can refuse, that some dreams aren't worth blood. But she also knows a life cannot be lived forever in a darkroom. She writes to Pamela with a compromise. Andre will appear in a few symbolic frames. The rest he will oversee as creative curator, approving scenes, light, and narrative. Pamela weighs the commercial pull, still short of Forrester's expectations, but she also knows that pushing harder will break the line. She agrees to negotiate with a grain of grit under her eyelid, because she knows a blazing campaign needs a blazing face, and Andre's is a face people still remember. The deadline presses in. Forrester Creations sends a draft visual script featuring a motif eerily close to the series Andre shot on that fateful day. The coincidence freezes him. Is the world mocking him by forcing him to walk the old road? He sketches alternative schemes, new palettes, new settings, new rhythms. But the more he edits, the more it feels like plastering fresh paint over the same wall. The thicker the coat, the harsher the odor, the sharper the memory. Sleep deserts him. He hears a camera's click in his skull like a timer about to explode. Danny watches him thin out, pen trembling in his fingers. She fears the price of returning to the lens is not a passing panic, but a collapse without rescue. At the same time, Vanessa receives a call from a junior partner soothing her. All the trouble will vanish if she renews a chain of contracts with a clause for community stability. She reads closely. Promises of scholarships and philanthropic events that sound angelic, but a technical appendix appoints 3 new security vendors empowered to intervene in any incident, including authority to harvest the asset's internal data. If she signs, she hands the nervous system's keys to skulls with no faces. If she refuses, she will be painted as the woman who choked the financial lifeblood of community projects, making herself a target. Is this Joey's snare, forcing her to choose between image and substance, between loving him and loving straight lines, between being called a wife and acting as gatekeeper for round-trip money? Caught in the crosswind, Pamela still trusts the hunter's instinct for opportunity. She senses that Vanessa is tugging at a web someone spun too deftly. She calls Danny about scheduling, but her voice falters for a heartbeat as if a storm's shadow crossed her back. She can't trace every dollar, but she knows when numbers go quiet, someone is clearing the table for a new game. She moves the shoot up, not from impatience but from the conviction that if they delay, the campaign door will slam for reasons that have nothing to do with fashion. Just then rumors drift down the hallway. Several logistics contracts tied to Vanessa's asset are on hold for audit. People whisper, eyes skittering, and no one dares say Joey's name aloud, as if pronouncing those 2 syllables would let the boardroom walls overhear their secrets. Night falls. Andre wanders alone through a dim park, the damp scent of fallen leaves in his lungs, the insect chorus like the murmur of old film stock. He wonders if tomorrow he will stand before the lens as they want, if his face still remembers how to converse with light, if his heart will detonate when the lamps flare. He moves slowly, like a man probing a minefield. He knows one wrong step could pull him and Danny into the crater. Somewhere else, Vanessa boots up, maps the money flows, and colors the nodes. A serpentine shape emerges, a snake biting its tail, an emblem of self-devouring. How do you break the loop without splashing blood on the innocent? And where no one is looking, Joey sits at a window, the room dark, and lets the moon work. His eyes are cold as a stone lake, He watches people protect what they love, and he knows that when people try to protect, they err. The shoot day arrives, the air thick as fog hiding flame. Pamela runs the timeline. Danny tweaks the scene script. Andre stands behind a black scrim, palm on the camera body as if on his chest, feeling the uneven beat. Everything is ready, but just before the first take, the media leak a story. A major Fairmont Crest asset is under financial scrutiny. No names, but everyone knows only one person has just taken control and touched the live wires. Vanessa. The outside cameras swivel away from Forrester's lights to the gate where black cars glide in silence. Pamela grinds her teeth so the storm she sensed has arrived at the exact, fragile minute. She tries to hold the schedule, but clients loathe uncertainty, and their PR team begins tallying risks. Danny feels the delicate architecture of weeks of negotiation tremble like a bridge in the wind. Andre looks into the lamps and, in the glare, sees the silhouette of the day that took the one he loved. A blink of fate. He knows that if he steps out, he may never return to who he was. If he doesn't, the bridge Danny built will collapse. At that very moment, Vanessa gets a call from the internal audit she herself commissioned. There is unusual cooperation from several new security vendors. The very names in the appendix she had hesitated to sign. That means someone signed in her place or an automatic mechanism she wasn't permitted to touch has been triggered. She sees the game is deeper than she thought. The control given to her is a name on paper, while the operating nerves run through a dispatcher she cannot access. If she sounds the alarm, she'll be branded a panic monger. If she stays silent, she becomes a decorative shadow. She opens a second laptop, scrapes the logs, and finds a cluster of addresses hidden behind a private network pointing somewhere outside Fairmont Crest. Outside the city, perhaps outside the country. Who parked the servers there? Who is counting her steps on the map? Andre lifts his eyes, takes half a step, and stops. Danny sees a tremor pass through him like wind through a leaf. Pamela signals a faster scene rotation to reduce the time Andre's face is required, fighting to salvage a minimum viable campaign. But the whispers about a looming asset crisis freeze the room. The client's legal team demands a halt until the rumor's source is verified. No one will glue their brand to a day drenched in shadow. Danny looks at Pamela and Andre and knows her dream is falling slowly like a drop of water. Swelling, heavy, then bursting without a sound. She doesn't blame Andre. She blames a world that won't let people walk through grief without charging them their future. As the black drape falls over the set, Vanessa rises from her chair, closes her machines, and wonders if this is the moment she must face Joey and ask one final, blunt question. Did you give me control, or a trap wrapped in ice? But if she asks, will the answer do anything but push her deeper into the maze of trust and power? If she keeps quiet, is she signing the sentence for herself and for those she's trying to protect? Pamela packs the papers, biting her lip until it bleeds, vowing to claw back a new date at any cost. Even as she feels a hairline crack in the glass of her faith, Andre lowers the camera and feels a cold wave run the length of his spine. He wonders whether he has just saved himself from a panic storm, or forfeited the only chance to step back into the light. Danny wraps her arms around the empty air before her as if cradling a dress left unsewn, and in that absence she sees a road rougher, darker, longer, but still the road she will take, because there is no other. Night inks Fairmont Crest. Again, the street lamps dip for a heartbeat, then flare, as if someone far away just flicked a test switch on a control board. Joey remains behind the glass, a barely visible curve at his mouth. He knows the people he loves or claims as his stand at crossroads where a small decision can break an entire life. He leaves them to it. He doesn't call or text. The net has been strung for years, back when everyone thought he was only a gentleman of parties. Will Vanessa choose integrity to the end and pull down the wall that props her up? Will Andre vanish into the shadows for good, leaving light to those it favors? Will Pamela still trust contracts as lyrical as poetry when reality has slit a seam through the fabric of her dream? Can Danny keep a love both fragile and full of Shards without turning to ash? At the end of the corridor, a window is cracked open. The wind slips through, carrying a tang of metal, like silk-wrapped chains beginning to rust. And in the question, hanging over the dark, no one knows what is truly real. Love or power? Promise or trap? Salvation or trade-off? Perhaps every answer is true only at different times. And when the pale morning blurs, across the rooftops, one stone-cold fact remains. This world does not kill with bullets. It kills with choices that seemed safe.